I'm so excited. Welcome once more to the Jazz Social, the hangout place for this year's London Jazz Festival. As I mentioned earlier on, I'm Jumoké Fashola, and this afternoon our guest is an acclaimed jazz vocalist from the Bronx, New York. She has rapidly risen to prominence as one of contemporary jazz's most exciting young voices. A 3-time Grammy winner, she took home the award for Best Jazz Performance for her single Tight, and she has earned accolades for her second album, Linger a While, winning the Best Jazz Vocal Album in 2023, along with the prestigious Best New Artist Award. And she's recently been nominated for Grammys again. This is so... for her EP. Her EP, A Joyful Holiday, for Best Jazz Vocal Album and Best Jazz Performance. Her latest album, Portrait, sees her mixing original compositions with reimagined jazz standards and showcasing the vibrant synergy of her touring band honed through countless performances. Please welcome the incredible Samara Joy. Samara, it's been quite a ride. What's it been like for you?
Indeed, it has been. Quite a ride is probably the best way to put it. I don't know if I could adequately put into words how wonderful the journey has been over the past couple of years. Overwhelming and exciting, and I'm definitely grateful to have captured something that I feel is authentic to where I am right now as an artist on this album, Portrait.
How do you feel you have changed during that journey? It's been a shortish journey, but obviously music has been in your life for a very, very long time. How have you changed as an artist during that period of time?
I think that I have grown a lot more confident in my musical vision and what I want to do. I feel like when I first started, I knew that I loved to sing. I had the, fortunate, opportunity to grow up in a family of singers, and so I always loved to express myself that way, but I never knew that I would come to find this path, and pursue jazz. I only started listening to it really when I got to college, and so I kind of immersed myself in it there, not necessarily to become a superstar, but because I wanted to learn more about it. And now that I've spent a couple years just kind of being really I transitioned from the classroom to being on the road all the time and performing and being a leader and learning how to do that. I feel like now I've kind of developed the confidence to really articulate what it is that I want to do and who I want to do it with.
And it is incredible to me when I listen to Portrait. I mean, the first time I listened to it, literally I had goosebumps. There is a moment on the album, or several moments, but there's the moment where you're just solo vocals by yourself. And I was like, I wonder where and how and what she was doing at that moment, because it is an incredible moment. That notion of being so individual that you can stand in front of a microphone and be able to sing. Tell me what that feels like for you.
I would say it feels so empowering. Especially with that song, because it was one that I was introduced to as a song by bassist and composer Charles Mingus called Reincarnation of a Lovebird. And it is not at all written for vocalists. It was definitely written to be played in an instrumental setting, as is displayed by, all the crazy intervals and the way that the melody is set up. Even the form is not standard, and so it took a while for me to just internalize how to sing the melody, and then even longer to try to figure out the story that I wanted to write and lyrics that I wanted to write to complement the story that was already being told through the melody. And so what's represented on my interpretation of it on the album is a year's worth of just really putting myself in this kind of zone of okay, I know this is not something that's often sung. I know that this kind of marks my next step in my artistry and being able to express myself, not only through my voice, but through my words. And I'm really glad that I was able to sing it a cappella, to sing the melody a cappella, because it's not easy. There's a part of it that's my favorite okay, let me see if I can try to do it right now. That the lyric is, the melody is, It's like, what the heck, you know? And, and then the lyrics that I put to it is, the essence of a world of beauty, passions overflowing, and reflections of the memories, the questions left behind. And I felt so good about that part of the song in particular. I was like, okay, now I think I've overcome, maybe my fear of even singing it in the first place, because I just wasn't, at the beginning of it, I was so excited, like being introduced to the song. I was like, this is new, this is different. I can put my stamp on it and really just grow and develop it. I saw it as like my next step, but there was definitely some challenges along the way. And now I feel really confident and I feel really, really ready, to really pursue, this next step and keep challenging myself, to do things that I didn't realize I could do.
And thank you for singing that, because I literally had that on repeat. Like I was writing an article about you, and literally every 5 seconds I'd be like, I just need to go back to that bit. I just need to go back to that bit. I just kept going back and going, like, how on earth do you do that? The other thing that strikes me about Portrait and what is so wonderful is you can hear how the band have been working together. That seasoning, it's like someone comes along and says, put some jerk seasoning in and put a bit of this and that seasoning is embedded in the album. It must be such a delight for you to know that that has been captured in that way, the touring, the late nights, the conversations. Tell us a bit about that and the band.
Yes, and I love that. Initially, it didn't start out as a way for me to say, this is what I want the next album to be. It was just, this is what I want the next step to be. I'm touring. I've been singing the songs from the second album a lot, and to the point where I feel like I don't have anything left to give to that music, and I want to start something else, just another creative project to keep myself from going crazy. And I thought to myself, well, I have friends who I graduated alongside. They have people that they're playing with. They're all writing, they're all arranging and composing. What if I put them all together in one spot, And we have the gigs on the books, we have the dates, we have the opportunities to play. So what if I just took this time, for the next year to really hone in on creating and cultivating a sound where everybody could offer up what they had to, offer individually, and then we could kind of cultivate a unique sound together. And that's what I did. Like, I was like, okay, you guys, here are the songs that I want you to arrange. You guys take these two, you take these two. They asked me, what do you want, on this song? And I was like, whatever you want. Wow. Whatever's in your mind to do, just do it, and we'll refine it later. And I feel like it helped us being in the studio, because we didn't need to. It's not like we were all meeting for the first time and it's like, okay, ooh.
It's a door.
Okay.
It's not a spirit, it's a door.
Is this place gonna crumble down or anything? But it wasn't like we were going into the studio and like shaking hands and being like, okay, let's see if we can try to create a vibe. It's like, we'd already been working together. And these are my peers, and so they, we were all just like night after night, thinking of ways to get better, thinking of ways to add on to the arrangements. I was growing because they were writing stuff for me that I felt like I couldn't sing at first. Right. And then I ended up growing into it and adding another layer of, I guess, musicality. And so when we finally got to the studio, we started the group in like March of 2023. So by the time we got into the studio this past March, we were in there for 3 days. And we recorded like at least 18 songs, and was like 2 or 3 takes just every day. I think we did 6 songs each day. And it was just a beautiful experience because we were able to really translate what we were crafting and cultivating on stage into the studio by all recording all in one room. So.
Can we talk about social media for a minute? Because,
let's do it.
Because it has, you use it in a really wonderful way. I suppose for every artist now, the notion of social media is either a joy or a pain, depending on where you are and how you're feeling. I love those vocal challenges, and you started to do them where you just go, well, here's what I was singing, you try it. And the response has been amazing, hasn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
And it's something that allows people to access jazz in a way that maybe prior people wouldn't have. If you went to a jazz club, etc. How important is it as an artist for you to engage in that way, to utilize social media? And what are the joys and what are the pains?
For me, I guess I've been using social media since I was in 5th grade. You know, my first Facebook account, and I was so excited. And so now having these different platforms to share what I do and what I love, kind of, I guess, what everybody's goal is when using it is to share, you know, who they are and try to build an audience from that. It's really special, you know, going to my shows and like signing and taking photos after, and everybody's like, this is, or some, you know, students or whoever is like, either I brought my parents, I was introduced to you from social media and I introduced my family, or saying this is my first jazz concert ever. I never interacted with it before I, you know, saw your post on social media. So it has definitely served a great purpose in my life, you know, of bringing people to, or allowing me to share what I do, and then kind of drawing in whoever would like to hear it, or whoever is drawn to it, I guess. Maybe the pain of it is being too consumed by it as an artist myself, and consumed by what I should be doing it's like it becomes the goal kind of shifts to what I should be doing to gain more followers instead of what I should be doing to share what I love with people, and then leave that where it is, you know? Because maybe there are some artists who focus more on making 30-second videos and focus more on doing that kind of stuff, and focus more on the count and the streams and all that kind of stuff. And me, I'm on the road. I mean, they're like, you should do like a tour diary or like a road diary. I'm like, I'm not focused on that. I'm like, oh, and even if I were to make like a little vlog or something, I would look terrible. I'm like so tired. But for me personally, it's not getting consumed with it, and not getting consumed in any sort of comparison about what I would be doing, if I had, you know, invested more time into it, and just focus on on what creative ideas I want to share. Not for the sake of just making content, but because I really believe in it and I really want to tell the story. Like for this album, for example, you know, having mini documentaries of my band members so you can get to know them, or, you know, having a tour diary. I'm going to Asia next year for the first time, and being able to share in those experiences, and you know, have this footage, have these pictures, do scrapbooks and stuff like just stuff that I can really like hold on to, but also share with other people. So yeah, joy, sharing, pain, not being consumed.
Well, that sounds like an ethos for life.
Yeah.
Can we talk about gospel music for a minute?
Let's do it.
Your father toured with Andre Crouch, who I was very fortunate many years ago to interview once, and he was just such a legend. And he walked into the room, and you're just like, like, do you know what I mean? Like, he was incredible. For anyone who doesn't know who Andre Crouch is, you really need to get to know, but really one of the stalwarts of jazz music. Gospel runs through you, like we say, like a stick of rock. So there's a thing at the core. Tell us a bit about gospel music for you in your life, because there are aspects or songs within Portrait that I hear the gospel.
Yeah.
I really hear the gospel. I'm like, yeah, she went to church here. Just explore that for us.
I mean, it's pretty foundational to my life, to my family. My grandfather, who just turned 94 this past September, had a group with my grandmother called the Savettes of Philadelphia, and my dad he was like 10 years old when he picked up the bass. My uncle, you know, played drums in the family band. My aunts played piano. Every Thanksgiving, every family gathering, we would all sing together. In church, we would sing together. So it's pretty ingrained, I feel like, in my DNA, in my family, and in my life, just music and expressing ourselves that way. And I guess when I encountered jazz for the first time, I felt like I didn't have enough of that language. You know, I knew that I loved gospel. I knew that like there were songs that I could reference without ever having to listen to it and know every single detail about it. And so I wanted to be able to be that confident and feel that way about jazz. Yeah. And it's almost like I spent 4 years in undergrad being completely immersed in jazz, and going on the road trying out different songs, trying out different ways to interpret things. And now I guess things are sort of balancing out in my mind and in my voice, where I feel like I can sing certain things and have it make sense, basically. Yeah. And so one of the songs that comes to mind on the album where I think of that is my first composition, Peace of Mind. And the whole song, even the fact that there's no defined time, it's like it's all kind of framed as like a question, a big hanging in the balance question in my mind of like, okay, I'm really overwhelmed by all the stuff that's happened thus far in my life. I'm wondering if I'm strong enough to be confident in who I am as an artist in the midst of all these decisions I have to make, career-wise, and projection of other people's ideas of what I should be doing with my career and stuff. Can I really stand firm on what I believe and what I need to do? And so there are parts of the song where it's like I say, well, the beginning of it is, where do you find your peace of mind? Is it in the places you go or the people you meet? And then I go on to say, here lies your fate, give in or wait. The choice alone is yours to decide what's wrong and what's right. And then when I got to the last part of the song, where it's like, sometimes you feel like giving up, but don't ever lose hope, I felt the need to say, like, just to myself, the gospel songs that I heard growing up, when you reach that part, of the song where you want to encourage people and you want to let them know that they're not alone, there's a certain energy and a certain emotion. And so I kind of put that, emotion into that part of the song before saying, just remember, dreams come true. So yeah, I feel a balance between all of the genres that define who I am, and I'm able to use them and share them as I see fit.
And that, for me, is the hallmark. One of the hallmarks of your voice is that whole history behind, because that if you were doing a Sunday in a church anywhere, some of the pastor would call whatever, every musician needs to be able to hit those chords and get ready, and and then they'll move again, and you'll be all of that kind of stuff. It's a real school, isn't it, of musicality, different maybe from jazz, but in some ways very similar. The threads of the improvisation, you must listen, you need to be able to go when they call you, and all of that kind of stuff. So you've really had a grounding in those kind of things, haven't you?
And it's beautiful to be able to develop your ear without knowing that you're doing it, like without like listening for the bless you, without knowing that you're in training, because I didn't realize, singing in church and being up front and having a mic, or being in the choir and having a part to stick to. I didn't realize that I was in training. My ear was in training, and when I encountered jazz, I really needed to rely and depend on my ear to be able to pick up certain nuances and apply them to myself, or else I felt like I wouldn't have really absorbed the style the way that I did.
What's the first song you remember singing?
The first song I remember singing? It might be like Oh Happy Day or His Eyes on the Sparrow, either one of those, yeah.
Either one of those, feel free. Either one of those, feel free.
Well, maybe, why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches over me. The quick version.
It's a Sunday. I feel like we've all just been to church, which is a really good thing for all of us, particularly if you've been doing a late night jazz hang somewhere else. So, interestingly enough, last night I was in conversation with Song-Yi Jeon and Diane Reeves at the Queen Elizabeth Hall as part of the EFG London Jazz Festival. But it was the launch, really, of Song-Yi. She's been mentored by Diane over the past 2 years. And we got into a conversation, and a couple of threads of this I'd really like to explore with you. One was the idea of women now coming to the fore in music and finding their own unique voice and finding a way of expressing and being who they are within the spaces that they find themselves. And Diane was particularly complimentary about you. I said, oh, I'm going to be in conversation with Samara. She was like, we were in the cab, and she was like, oh my gosh, I love her.
Oh, wow.
I love her. I love her. She's part of this new cohort of singers who are really doing their thing. I know you've been compared to lots of people, but when you think about those people, what do you take from their experiences, from their musicality, that influences your music, and how important is that for you?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I would say there are definitely a couple of vocalists that come to mind when I think of people who have influenced me and changed my idea on the role of a vocalist and how many different options you have. And one that comes to mind is Betty Carter, because of the fact that anytime I listen to an interpretation of hers, a song of hers that she arranged for her band, it sounds completely different from the original. And if anything, there's more use of rhythm, there's more use of dynamics, there's changing tempos, and it's like she treats herself as an instrument, and I appreciated and was drawn to that energy and drawn to the way that she kind of commanded the band and really used the dynamic, because it's all, we're doing is interpreting a story and trying to share a story in a way that, because and like the emotion of the story, it kind of, it's all written, it's all there, but the way that we kind of take it and make it our own, like maybe, for example, there's a version of hers of a song called Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most. And the live version of it on the audience with Betty Carter, there's like a lilting groove underneath what she's singing, and like she loves tempos that are all stretched and drawn out, and she can kind of float over it and pick and choose when she wants to come in. But what I love towards the end of it, I'm not going to sing again.
Don't worry. You can. I'm sure we'd be happy, but
but towards the end, she's singing, and it's pretty quiet, and it's like almost getting quieter and quieter, and it forces you to kind of lean in to really pick up what she's saying, and then the band just hits this big, just this big dynamic crash, and it fits perfectly in where she was taking the song. So yeah, I admire her individuality in the way that she interprets songs and arranges them and really involves the whole band, and they kind of move as one. Another vocalist I think of is Abby Lincoln, specifically an album called Straight Ahead of hers that she did with, incredible musicians like Max Roach and Coleman Hawkins and Booker Little, Julian Priester, all these people, Art Davis, Eric Dolphy. And I guess one thing that I took away from that album and the way that the songs were arranged for her is a lot of times the melody note that she was singing, it was very close to the horns, like what the horns had written for themselves. And I appreciated that it just sounded like almost like a chord that was being played on the piano, but in close proximity. And I really admired just the way that it sounded, because it wasn't as if, I don't know if she was trying to make herself sound like a horn, but it fit anyway, with what she was singing and with what they were playing. And I think Sarah Vaughan was probably a major influence when I was first introduced to jazz, and I had not heard of Sarah Vaughan or listened to her ever. And so getting to dive into her operatic, range and her use of her voice, the ease that she flowed, within each register. It seemed like she could just pop up and down, like whenever she chose. And that was one thing that I was like, okay, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to sing with ease. Any idea that comes to my head, I want to be able to execute it without any sort of hardship. Yeah, so those are three that I feel like I draw from. A
Yeah,
lot.
and also the other thing is then you are a band leader, and you know we were talking about this yesterday. Song Yi, one minute she's singing, the next minute she's conducting, and you know, and all of this kind of stuff. And there is that notion of the conversation when you are live on stage, and jazz musicians in particular have a way of communicating, don't they? In order to keep that conversation fresh, in order to keep it new and of that moment. What is it like for you as the artist on stage at that point? And are there ever moments where you're like, well, we're all hanging by a thread here. Let's all pray to Jesus and keep going.
Thankfully, never that, and I'm very, very thankful for that. I think surrounding myself with musicians who listen, you know, and who are actively listening to me, because yeah, there's certain times when maybe in an arrangement of a song, there's a point where, you know, it's written that we're going to fortissimo or forte, and there are times where I want to sing it like piano, you know, and hopefully that will have the same effect as if I sang it at that dynamic, and they know to listen and follow me in those moments, just because of the trust that we've developed. I feel like being a band leader, for me, has always been about the collaborative approach and about not like forcing anybody to fit into this box of this is how I want you to play it all. Like I want everybody to be free to be themselves and free to be creative and add spontaneously to the moment so that I can feed off of it. Because it's like if we're all playing the same way, then there's nothing to, you know, feed off of and there's nothing to interact with. But if we all trust each other to know that if I make a mistake, I know you'll back me up. Or if I'm reaching for something, I know that you'll help me to articulate that idea, you know, with your own chosen orchestration, then it'll work.
But are there ever mistakes in jazz?
We just kind of, that was meant to happen. It was meant to happen. It was magic. That's what it is.
And it always is magic when these things happen. Let's talk about collaborations, because you've collaborated with lots of people. What are the kind of things you want to do now as you find your voice and expand and, you know, search for new horizons?
Well, I think now that I've formed, I want to, or been in at least 3 versions of a band at this point, you know, and explored, you know, playing with guitar and playing just like guitar trio, guitar and piano, guitar, like just piano trio and now octet. And so I'm enjoying the collaboration with my peers and kind of getting all those fresh ideas, and honestly being with people and being in a band where everybody has time to invest into, you know, being in a working band, because there's not, maybe, I don't want to say there's not that many of them these days, but maybe there's not as much opportunity to do so. And so I'm fortunate to have a group of people that I can trust to, you know, be committed to doing this and not just for the gig or just for anything, but really for the musical integrity of it all. I got the chance to collaborate with PJ Morton on a movie.
That
Shirley.
song's great. That
Yeah,
oh
thank
my
you.
God, I've played it so many times
Thank
on radio.
you.
It really is great.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites too. It came together really nicely. He wrote the melody and pretty much all of the lyrics except the B section. I wrote the lyrics to the B section. It was a nice way to kind of collaborate songwriting wise, because I want to get more experience with writing lyrics and sort of trying to evoke some sort of imagery with the words that the lyrics that I say and how I express a story. So it's nice to get any experience that I can, even if it's in a different genre. As far as collaborations in the future, I don't know. I would love to play with somebody like Ron Carter, just because, I mean, he's in incredible shape. I mean, he's still in top form, you know, and you know, even seeing him perform live and seeing the way that his hands move so elegantly and so gracefully, it's like this is somebody who has truly dedicated his whole life to doing this and has been in some of the best, you know, situations to do it. And so I would love to interact with that musicality at some point.
And let's talk about the push and pull of that sort of notion of being a vocalist and a songwriter, because Carmen Lundy has been in town recently, and she, over the past 50 years, has chosen to only perform her original music. I mean, I think the first 3 or 4 albums were covers, or not covers, but standards. But now will only, or chooses to do her original music only. What are your thoughts around that? Do you see yourself going in that direction, or do you still think there is more to explore within the standards, and therefore they should always be incorporated into your music?
It's kind of funny. I feel like I've already sort of delved into new territory. It might even be shown throughout my albums. Like the first album, Standards, was all I knew. I was still an undergrad. And so I hadn't really explored outside of that. On the second album, there are, certain songs that are a little obscure, that sound standard, but maybe they're written, like, for example, something like Sweet Pumpkin was written by a pianist, Ron Elbright. Something like Social Call was written by an alto saxophonist named Gigi Grice. Can't Get Out of This Mood is a standard, but it's one that wasn't often. I think Sarah Vaughan and Nina Simone were the only ones to record it. So on the second album, I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting into different instrumentalists whose songs aren't really often recorded, and I can kind of try to make them my own and introduce them in a way that might, bring them to a new audience. And now with this current album, it's like there's only 2 standards on the album. You Stepped Out of a Dream, starts and ends, yeah. So You Stepped Out of a Dream, the first one, and Day by Day in the end. And everything else in the middle is a jazz composition, or Brazilian, Antonio Carlos Jobim. And I think it's a pretty natural progression. Even you can look at the way that a lot of jazz musicians, they go from, playing standards. Maybe they still play the same standards that they love, but somebody like Benny Golson wrote so much that a lot of his tunes became standard. Thelonious Monk has, recordings of standards, but he also made compositions that people, consider to be standard. Same thing with somebody like Duke Ellington or Billy Strayhorn or, Train or anybody. So I find it to be a pretty natural progression, not necessarily to just completely move away and throw away standard, or anything like that, but just the more that you listen to music, the more that you explore what's possible. And if somebody like Art Blakey or like Max Roach can show you what's possible over a whole lifetime, Benny Golson can show you what's possible over a whole lifetime of loving and exploring music, then it's possible for me to record, a Mingus tune now. It's possible for me to record something by Sun Ra, my own composition, my first composition. So, yeah.
And I wonder about the idea of then belonging to a record company that has that lineage, so that actually, I'm sure you've probably been into this legendary vault that they've got somewhere. Ooh. Have you been in?
I still have yet to explore inside.
Oh, really? There's a vault.
I think it's locked up.
It's locked up, but apparently you can go and sit in every record that has ever been recorded by the record company is all there. I mean, but to know that you are following in those footsteps, but also to know that there is that much material available, even if it is just to explore and then to inspire you, must be a really lovely thing.
Yeah. And like I said, it's like I get to see what's possible. That's and there are some moments where you think about musicians who did not live that long, and still they recorded so much music and documented so much of their artistic voice in the short time that they had. And so now it's like I have my whole life to explore what I want to do and figure out what's next, but not thinking so far ahead. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 10 years, but I hope it's something productive and musical, whether it's with, an orchestra or, anything like that. So, or writing more or expanding the band. And I don't know if I can travel with more than 8 people, but but something like that.
And so, can I ask you about the Grammy Awards? I've never been to the Grammys. I just watch it on TV and everybody gets dressed up. Which is that a moment? Is that like, when you're just...
It's pretty crazy. I don't feel like I belong there when everybody's all dressed up, though. I'm like... I'm not a
you
gowns
can
girl.
you pull out a thing or two. You pull out a dress or two.
Girl.
You are a gowns girl. You are.
Not.
But listen, you looked amazing. What are you talking about? The
Thank
album
you.
cover is amazing. I mean, come on.
Thank you so much. I was like, guys, it's too expensive in here. I can like, whoa, just I'm overwhelmed. But it's a pretty fun experience, I will say. Like especially the first year, I was like so overwhelmed. I was like, is this what everybody, like we have to go to the we got to do this red carpet, all these interviews and, these different parties and, interact with all these different celebrities. You see them walking by in their natural habitat of Los Angeles, California. And it's like all the table, like I was on the floor at the Grammys. And there's some things, honestly, that look better on TV than they might look live because everybody's looking at the cameras, and the cameras are all up on stage and blocking people, so it may not be as fulfilling of an experience live. But yeah, being on the floor and seeing, somebody like Beyonce or like, Trevor Noah who hosts it and, all these different performers and stuff. I think one night I ended up at a table with like Chris Tucker and I was like, what are you doing here? Why are we sitting at the table? Like, what is this? This is crazy. But, yeah, so it's pretty fun. It's pretty out of my norm. And I'm glad it's something that I just visit and don't, and not there all the time.
But so is there not a part of you that goes, oh, look at me. I'm now at the Grammys. This is would be me. I'm now at the Grammys.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
walking the red
You'll go. I believe it.
Okay, take me as your
plus one.
Plus
Let's do
one.
it.
Hey, you heard it here
Let's
first. Plus one. Me and Samara will be walking down. I'll be like,
Let's do
okay,
it.
this is me.
So much stuff.
But it's an astonishing thing, and I think, and the reason why I raise it is because, of course, when you think about, you were in the studio, you're on the road, you're doing the thing, and suddenly here you are at the Grammys, and you're winning, and you're winning the big ones.
Yeah, that's crazy. Even thinking about it now, I was in shock. Like, I don't think I really stopped to think about it because right after I just kind of went back on tour, which was good. Because I don't know whether or not I would have been distracted or my focus would have turned from being focused on music to being focused on keeping up this newfound attention and making sure like I'm visible at all times. Like I'm glad I went back on the road, but it's pretty overwhelmed. Like peace of mind was coming from a real place. I was like I was almost ready. I wasn't ready to quit, but I was just like, I think I need to take a step back because this is just happening way too fast. Like I released Linger a While in September, and November is when the nomination came around, and then February, it was like, whoa, I can't, all this stuff. It's like once the nominations came out, then we were gearing up for the Grammys, and then we got the Grammys, and then we were gearing up for more interviews amidst the tour schedule, and amidst, it's like I was traveling so much, and I'm grateful to be busy. I'm really grateful to have this be the work that I'm doing. It was just like, I don't know how, I'm still figuring out how to balance it and how to adapt. But it's very cute. It's very fun. Where are they? Where are the awards? Where'd you put them? Because everybody leaves them. They're with my parents. Oh, okay. Because I love. I don't know if I do. I love moving. And so I think I've changed apartments 3 times over the past couple of years. And so I just, in the midst of moving around, I'm like, I'd just rather keep it with them. They're very happy to admire them, and they have their morning coffee and hold them and, show all the family members that might come over and stuff. So, and it's for them anyway, I think. So, I'm glad to leave it in their hands. Well, every as you say, their morning coffee, they're looking at going, this is my chance. Yeah, this is. This is, you see, this is. Oh my gosh! Well, I would be that person if I, So now that I've got a date at the Grammys, I'm very excited indeed. Yes, thank you, Samara. It's been an absolute joy. I didn't mean to do that, but I did anyway. Please give a huge round of applause to Samara Joy. Thank you.